I think it's realistic to acknowledge that there will be difficult situations when you're a trustee, especially if you're a trustee, I think, of a smaller organisation, because that blurring of lines comes into place sometimes, no matter how much you try to keep it separate. So there could be issues about your chief executive, of your director, both that they're not performing as well as they might do, and everyone says the key responsibility of a good board is to recruit the right chief executive in, but also that they're taking on too much and that they're struggling to deliver as well as they might do because of the organisational structure, and you have a responsibility to step in that circumstance and help. I think there are other issues as well. We've seen how complicated fundraising is nowadays. You have to be mindful of organisational reputation, and the financing is very tough. All of that places a burden on the trustees as well as the executive to be able to respond, and to respond productively and coherently when things get tough.
I've seen this on other boards too, where there is definitely a hierarchy in the room, and there's definitely a sort of we're in charge of your company and we will tell you what to do. And that's very difficult. So even in that room, everybody's respecting the both women who lead their companies in a really incredible kind of way. So there's no hierarchy. We're very clear that we're there to support her and what she wants to do. So, and then ultimately trying to make the right decision for what the company is and where the company wants to go. And that's hard, because sometimes it might mean that somebody might have to go, or you might have to lose a thing that we felt really passionate about, but we can't do anymore because it doesn't take us in the right direction. Or something that somebody really wanted, or it might be something systemic that, we just have to change that practice because that's not serving us anymore, or that's going to end up, everybody's going to end up in jail.
I've seen a number of boards work really well when things are going well. I've also seen a couple of boards, the same boards, work really badly when things start to go wrong, because they panic because they don't know what they're doing. They haven't talked about major incident planning. They haven't talked about disaster recovery. They haven't thought about some of the really important things that come into play if somebody's ill, somebody's away, somebody dies, or a chair suddenly has to go back and doing a day job, and they haven't got the time to do it. So what happens? Do they fight between themselves, or do they sort of go, no, we're going to organise this really well? Part of that comes from the executive, of course, but also part of it comes from the board. So how do they plan? They need to make time to plan. How do you get the right expertise? You need to bring the right expertise in. If you don't have it amongst the board of trustees and you don't have it in the executive, get some outside skills and expertise in for specific meetings, specific times to help plan. But to me, it's really about, do those trustees show real leadership? Does the executive director, chief executive, whatever that role is, and the chair work closely together and have a trust relationship, so the chair doesn't sort of go, I don't know what you're doing, I can't, it's no panic. It's just, we have to get over the situation if there's a situation, and then we empower different members of the executive team or the board to take some of the responsibility until that hump is got over. These are all really easy things in practice, and I've seen really hard things. I've seen disasters happen both in this organisation and other organisations.
How can we ensure that we're being inclusive as a board and allowing people that come from those underrepresented groups to have a voice on the board and to feel like they're part of it, that if they can't buy that big meal ticket for the organisation's fundraiser and bring 5 people with them, that they are not felt bad about it because they contribute in other ways, or that the board always offers that they will pay for travel expenses or whatever, just as a gesture to ensure that people are able to make it, even if nobody takes it up, because they are a group of volunteers as well, and if we want to have fair representation, we need to treat people fairly. I think that this idea of thinking about yourself as a team rather than an individual is very important. So yes, you have your personal development. I have my personal development. I learn so much from my other peers on the boards, from the chief exec, from the organisation itself and their volunteers and members and staff. And I also take my learning back and forth. but thinking about our learning across as a team is something that is not necessarily very prevalent in the sector.
I think the best challenges are ones you are prepared for. So actually, the best boards that I've been part of, where we've been dealing with issues that have been coming up, have been about really looking at a range of options, looking at what the fallout from some of those challenges could be, looking at the downside, working out how risky some of the plans are, and to really rally around and support in whatever way you can, whether that's through their financial challenges, whether that's through being directly involved with short or long-term fundraising, whether that's bringing in consultancy or help from elsewhere, or whether it's engaging you with other organisations in the sector that have had similar problems, so you can put together a really wide overview of how you're going to address those risks. It's increasingly important nationally, but also locally. Arts organisations and cultural organisations are what set their communities apart. In a world of increasing homogenisation, the things that really build a community and that are points of difference in a community are their cultural institutions. They're their museums, their libraries, their theatres, their galleries. But we're living in really tough times. Times are really changing, and we are having to constantly go out and remake the argument for culture. And I think boards that are coming together to champion and protect their cultural institutions have potentially a real fight on their hands. They are going to have to go out and make that case locally as to why that theatre, why that art gallery needs that support, why it is a critical part of that community, why as a charity they deserve their place within that, within that portfolio of things locally that really make that community at a time when critical services are being cut, at the time where we're living off food banks, and things that a few years ago we would have thought were completely statutory bodies and statutory services are now disappearing. And actually, that's really that's a big challenge for boards coming